Hello and welcome to Wrestling Trope Alert, the channel where we analyze professional wrestling. If this is your first time here, help the channel by clicking the subscribe button. Today we are going back to 2005 and we are going to talk about the rivalry between the late great Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio over the custody of Dominic Mysterio. This video is part 2 of a 2-part series of videos comprising the entire Eddie Guerrero vs Rey Mysterio rivalry. The link to the other part is in the description. This new chapter in the story would start in the June 30th, 2005 episode of SmackDown. Eddie, who hasn't been able to beat his former friend and current foe Rey Mysterio, is in a backstage segment being interviewed, and Eddie finally snaps and decides to find a different way to win over Rey Mysterio. Eddie tells the interviewer Josh Matthews that Rey will beg Eddie not to tell the truth.
Rey Mysterio begged me not to tell the truth.
And 10 minutes later, Eddie would make his entrance and cut a promo. And in this promo, Eddie shows a video package of Eddie at Rey Mysterio's son Dominic daycare. Eddie speaks to Dominic, the son of Rey Mysterio, about secrets.
Do you like secrets?
I love secrets.
Oh man.
And then Eddie gives some candy to Dominic in a deeply uncomfortable segment designed to intimidate Rey by going after Rey Mysterio's family. In this segment, Eddie promises Mysterio's son Dominic a bedtime story that he will never forget. And after the video package, Eddie calls out Rey and Eddie asks the audience if the secret should be revealed. Angry Rey Mysterio shows up and Rey pleads with Eddie to stop this madness. Eddie antagonizes Rey and Rey manages to keep his cool. Rey then drops to his knees, pleading Eddie not to reveal this secret. Then the heel Eddie Guerrero grabs some candy similar to the ones he gave Dominic earlier and Eddie shoves the candy in Rey Mysterio's face. Eddie leaves the ring area and Rey Mysterio is left behind, in shock. On the following SmackDown broadcast, Rey and Eddie have a tag team match against M&M, and ahead of their match, Eddie and Rey are in a backstage segment and Eddie is blackmailing Rey with his yet unknown secret, and Rey Mysterio has no choice but to go along with Eddie's devious ways. 20 minutes later, Eddie comes out, somber Rey follows. The tag team champions M&M are already in the ring, and throughout this match, Eddie would play mind games with Rey.
Again, the quickness of Mysterio, but think of Dominic.
And in the ending moments of this match, Eddie would hit his signature frog splash, Eddie would break the pinfall himself by lifting the head of his opponent, and Eddie would give the pinfall to Rey Mysterio. Rey gets in the ring, and given time to recover, Mercury kicks out a 2. Rey goes on the offense as Eddie cheers for Rey, but as Rey goes for the 619, Eddie grabs Rey and Rey falls hard on the canvas. Eddie would then abandon his corner, procure a steel chair, and Eddie would sit down watching the match as Rey gets annihilated by M&M. Rey manages to hang with M&M, and Rey turns the tides of the match and eventually manages to drop the dime on Morrison, and the deranged Eddie Guerrero shows up to kick and stomp Rey Mysterio, and then watching from his corner again as M&M pins Eddie's tag team partner Rey Mysterio. After the match, Eddie would cut a promo asking Rey if he's hurt, and Rey wants to fight back but he can't, because Eddie continues to hold this secret hostage over Rey Mysterio. Rey then tries to leave, but Eddie doesn't let him. Then Eddie Guerrero slaps Rey Mysterio and Eddie orders Rey to hold the ropes for Eddie. Rey complies and Eddie leaves the ring as Rey looks on, seething in anger. On the next SmackDown episode, Eddie makes his entrance with his somber look of disdain, entering the ring, eyeballing the paying audience. Eddie cuts a promo talking about Rey's absence in this SmackDown broadcast.
So Rey Mysterio's not gonna be here tonight, is he?
Eddie Guerrero is in control of Rey Mysterio because Eddie knows a secret that Rey doesn't want to share with the world.
I can make you do whatever I want!
Eddie then says that Rey's absence leads him to the realization that Eddie must do something to make up for Rey's absence. Then Eddie starts to tease telling Rey Mysterio's secret. Then Eddie directs his promo to Rey's son's Dominic, and Eddie through the television tells Dominic that Eddie loves him.
Hi, Dominic. Remember, Uncle Eddie loves you.
Eddie then intimidates the announcer Tony Schimmel to supply him with a share. Eddie proceeds to tell the first chapter of Eddie's bedtime story.
Once upon a time, in a land far away.
Eddie's story would get short by the appearance of Eddie's family, Vicky Guerrero and Eddie's daughters, Sherilyn and Shaul Guerrero. Vicky tries to plead with her husband and Vicky steals Eddie's microphone away, and Vicky tries her best to bring Eddie to reason.
I came out here to calm you down, to help you understand that this is getting out of hand.
Eddie grabs his wife and forcefully brings her backstage. And moments later in the backstage area, Vicky and Eddie argue in front of everyone. And as Eddie is leading his family to a car for them to leave, Hardcore Holly, the tough enough contestant's favorite wrestler, shows up to attempt to cool down Eddie Guerrero. Eddie feigns calming down and pushes Holly. Then Holly pushes back and Eddie says goodbye to his kids, the Guerrero family leaves, and now Eddie has some unfinished business with Hardcore Holly. 20 minutes later, Eddie would be in a match with Hardcore Holly, and in this match both wrestlers would light each other up with thunderous knife-edge chops. Eddie would win this match by poking the referee Charles Robinson.
I'm talking about little nature boy Charles Robinson, you got it?
In the eye and taking advantage of the situation. Eddie would drive Holly into the announce desk back first. Eddie would then source a steel pipe from under the ring. Eddie would tell the people that he's the law, Texas Cloverleaf, and Holly taps. After the match, Eddie would cut a promo directed at his wife Vicky, apologizing for his actions earlier, and Eddie would tell Vicky that he loves her and his kids. Eddie then says that he will give Rey the opportunity to keep his secret. And in order to do that, Rey Mysterio has to beat Eddie Guerrero. But if Eddie wins, Eddie gets to finish this bedtime story to Dominic. On the following SmackDown broadcast, Rey Mysterio is opening the show wrestling Super Crazy of the Mexicools. Rey would have a competitive match with Super Crazy, and in the middle of the match, Eddie would show up to guest commentate. Wrestling trope alert: in every long and extended rivalry, at some point one of the wrestlers in the rivalry will be wrestling someone else. Then the other wrestler will guest commentate and more often than not interfere in the match. Eddie is confident of his win later at the Great American Bash, and Taz, who at this point is the commentator for SmackDown, grills Eddie about the secret.
Trying to find out, get some info here. But Eddie, is Rey's wife and your wife, are they related? Why don't you just shut up?
And in the ending moments of the match, Rey sends Super Crazy towards the second rope, teasing the 619. Eddie would interfere by grabbing Psychosis' rake and hitting Rey with the rake, causing Rey to win the match by disqualification. After the match, Eddie would be in a backstage segment with Teddy Long. Eddie tells Long that he's leaving, then Teddy screws Eddie Guerrero, and Teddy puts Eddie in a secret match. Spoiler alert, it's against Chris Benoit. 20 minutes later, Eddie doesn't want to wrestle Benoit and feigns leaving, and eventually after a hard-fought match, Eddie would lose the match by countout, escaping from the crossface and leaving the match altogether. Mysterio would show up for some payback on Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie would crawl back to the gorilla position while Rey would be in the grasp of the WWE officials. At the Great American Bash pay-per-view, Eddie Guerrero holds the ultimate secret over the head of both Rey Mysterio and the audience. If Eddie Guerrero wins this match, Rey Mysterio's secret will be revealed. Ahead of the match, Eddie speaks in a backstage segment. Eddie blackmailed Rey Mysterio into bringing Dominic to the Great American Bash event. Eddie wants Dominic to be present when he wins the match to hear firsthand the rest of Eddie's bedtime story. And Rey would also be shown backstage praying for protection and for a win against Eddie Guerrero. Dominic Mysterio is also shown in this segment, and Dominic is scared of what this night can bring.
Listen to me. There's nothing to be scared of. Everything's gonna be okay.
Moments later, Eddie Guerrero makes his entrance, his face carrying a burden of evilness and disdain, and the wary and cautious Rey Mysterio follows, accompanied by his 8-year-old son Dominic. Dominic sits in front of the announce desk, and Mysterio enters the ring without taking his eye from Dominic. Eddie then tells Dominic to smile as the people chant, "Eddie sucks." Eddie blackmails Rey to shake his hand, showing Dominic that they are friendly. Both men embrace, and Eddie would then get clotheslined and back body dropped by Rey. Baseball slide, kick to the gut, and Rey would fail the crossbody, leading to Eddie having the upper hand in this match. A match in where both wrestlers would tell a great story in the ring, with both incorporating the young Dominic into the narrative of the match. Later in the match, Eddie would roll outside to gather his strength back, and Eddie would go to embrace Dominic, and Eddie would also then shield himself with Rey Mysterio's son. Eddie would continue to acknowledge Dominic throughout the match, as Rey valiantly fights for his son and his family. In the ending moments of the match, Rey, with the springboard dropkick, manages to send Eddie flying towards the second rope. Rey hits the 619, drop of the dime, Eddie dodges, and Eddie goes for his signature offense. 1, 2, 3 amigos. Eddie climbs the corner for the frog splash, Rey rolls out of the way, Eddie manages to give a fourth and also a fifth amigo, and Rey is down. Eddie looks at Dominic as he picks Rey Mysterio for a brainbuster, calling back to when Eddie delivered that vicious move on the steel steps weeks back. Then Eddie lands the frog splash, but takes his time covering Rey. Rey Mysterio reverses and pins Eddie Guerrero to win this match. Rey and Dominic celebrate their victory and foil the dastardly heel Eddie Guerrero's plan to reveal his secret. The story continues on the following SmackDown broadcast. Taz and Cole tell the audience that Eddie is not present, and in a backstage segment, Dominic is shown playing his PSP. Dominic asks his father about the secret, and Rey tells his son that he will tell this secret to his son when he becomes older. 2 minutes later, Rey and his son Dominic make their entrance, and Rey thanks the people for the support, and Eddie Guerrero, who is supposed to not be here, interrupts this moment. Rey tells Eddie that their problem is over, and Rey also tells Eddie to get away from his family. Then Eddie Guerrero says that he's a man who keeps his promises, and that Rey might have beaten Eddie at the Great American Bash, but Eddie never loses.
Nobody beats me porque yo soy la ley!
Eddie then breaks the promise he made to his wife Vicky.
I lie!
Eddie brings a custom book as Rey attempts to cover his son's ears. Then Rey goes up the ramp to confront Eddie, and Eddie drops the bombshell.
Dominic! Rey is not your father! I'm your father, Dominic!
The secret has finally been revealed. Rey returns to console his son Dominic in this emotional segment. Dominic asks his father if this is true, as the broken down Rey tries to tell his son to disregard what Eddie has said, and the young Dominic, troubled with emotion, runs away from his father, escaping through the audience with his father Rey in tow. Then Eddie gets in the ring and proceeds to insult the audience. Eddie then orders Tony Schimmel to bring him a chair, and Eddie proceeds with his awful bedtime story. Eddie goes on to tell the story of the time that Eddie and his wife Vicky got separated because of Eddie's errant ways and demons. Side note, this is actually based in reality. In 2002, Eddie went through substance abuse problems and separated from his wife. And Eddie during this time was in a relationship with a woman named Tara Mahoney, and that relationship resulted in a birth of a child, Kaylee Marie Guerrero. Eddie continues his story, and Eddie says that one of his many one-night passions got pregnant.
And I was going a little loco when me and my wife were separated. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Having sex with a lot of different mamacitas. Well, one day, one of these told me that she was pregnant.
And neither Eddie or this fictional woman wanted anything to do with this child. The solution for this problem was to give this unwanted child to Rey, who according to Eddie was shooting blanks, but desperately wanted to have a child with his wife Angie. Eddie then feels relieved to finally tell the story to the world, and Eddie announces more to come the next week on the second chapter of Eddie's bedtime story. On the next SmackDown broadcast, Rey makes his entrance to open the show, in the first edition of Christian's new talking segment, the Peep Show. Christian, the asshole heel, asks Rey,
"Who's your daddy?"
Rey cuts him off and Rey wants Eddie Guerrero. Christian calls Rey a liar and Christian introduces Eddie to tell the second chapter of this bedtime story. Eddie is a no-show to the arena audience and Eddie from the backstage area promotes his new I'm Your Papi t-shirt. Eddie then continues to tell the second chapter of Eddie's bedtime story, as Rey attempts to interrupt and Eddie tells Rey that Rey needs to mind his manners, and Eddie says that he will finish the second chapter of this bedtime story by the end of this week's SmackDown episode. Christian then blindsides Rey Mysterio with a microphone, delivers his finishing move, the Unprettier, and Rey Mysterio is left laying on the canvas. Theodore Long would take this opportunity to commit Christian for a match. In the main event, Rey Mysterio would be facing Christian. 30 minutes later in the parking lot, Eddie meets a woman and Eddie tells this woman that without her, there wouldn't be a chapter 2 for the bedtime story. And moments later, Rey Mysterio is the first one out. Captain Charisma is next and Rey takes the fight to Christian as soon as Christian gets in the ring. And after a seated senton on Christian, Eddie and the mysterious woman would show up to take a seat in front of the entrance, as the match carries on. Eventually, Rey Mysterio would win this match with a 619, drop of the dime and pinfall. And after the match, Rey would speak on the microphone challenging Eddie to come to the ring and fight. Eddie refuses Rey's challenge and Eddie introduces the mysterious woman, and her name is Anna. Eddie says that Anna is going to help Eddie finish chapter 2 of Eddie Guerrero's bedtime story. Anna then takes the bedtime storybook to Rey Mysterio and Rey is given the choice to read the chapter himself or Eddie will read it for him. Rey opens the book to reveal a legal document regarding Dominik's custody.
The courts have found that I am Dominic's father. Next week, you have to bring Dominic down.
Eddie then tells Rey that if Rey can convince Eddie of Rey's love for Dominic, that Eddie might let Rey keep Dominic. Rey Mysterio then tries to reason with Eddie Guerrero.
Dominic is my son. We had to wait till he was old enough to understand. You know who taught him how to ride his first bicycle? The first words to come out of his mouth were Dad. He called me Dad. When my son broke his arm, I took him to the hospital. I love my son.
Rey begs Eddie to not hurt Dominic further.
And I'm begging you, man to man, don't hurt my son anymore.
Rey drops to one knee and Eddie, the consummate heel, tells the audience that the woman Anna is not actually the mother of Dominic as implied, but is instead Eddie's lawyer. Eddie continues this madness and Eddie is committed to take Dominic away from Rey Mysterio. Eddie wants Dominic to carry out the Guerrero legacy and Eddie warns Rey that the following week,
Dominic comes home to Papi.
On the next SmackDown broadcast, the Mysterio family will be shown walking backstage, and Eddie is also backstage in a segment with a representative from Child Service. Eddie pleads his case with the social worker.
Just can't stand back and watch this happen anymore. This is my son.
I'm here to observe and ensure that Dominic's best interests are being served.
Next, Eddie brings the social worker to the ring. Eddie cuts a promo showered with Eddie sucks chants, and Eddie tells the audience that this might be the day that Dominic will come to a home filled with honesty and love.
Miss Crabtree here. Hi.
I'm Mrs. Blader from Family and Child Services.
Oh, Mrs. Blader, thank God you're here.
Then Eddie calls out the Mysterios, and in silence the Mysterio family comes out. Eddie drops to one knee and Eddie tells Dominic to come to him, his kayfabe real father. Eddie tells the social worker that the Mysterios are infecting Dominic with lies.
Well, you can come to Daddy. You see what they're doing? It's only right that Dominic comes home to me.
Eddie yells at the social worker to do her job.
Now!
Then Rey Mysterio speaks and attempts to reason with Eddie Guerrero.
Nobody wins here, Eddie.
Eddie tells Rey to look at Dominic and see Dominic's silence as an example and shut up. Eddie's tired of the talk and Eddie wants his son Dominic. Rey Mysterio then cuts a promo of his life, and Rey Mysterio speaks to Eddie about the pride Rey Mysterio felt for Eddie conquering his demons and becoming the World Heavyweight Champion.
You've beaten every obstacle that has come into your life. You've beaten all the odds. You've beaten addiction, Eddie, and became WWE Champion. But you haven't beaten Rey Mysterio.
Eddie resists Rey's narrative for a while because Eddie thinks that winning is hurting Rey and taking Dominic away from the Mysterios. Rey Mysterio tries to convince Eddie that he might break the Mysterio family apart and he might even take Dominic, but there's two things that Eddie can take away from Rey Mysterio.
The love for my son and a victory from Rey Mysterio.
Rey then tells Eddie that if Dominic goes with Eddie, Dominic will always know that Eddie Guerrero was never the wrestler that Rey Mysterio was.
You could never beat Rey Mysterio.
Eddie Guerrero then falls into Rey Mysterio's trap, hook, line and sinker. Eddie then takes his jacket and tries to smile at the social worker. Rey Mysterio then challenges Eddie Guerrero for a match at Summerslam for the custody of Dominic. Eddie accepts the challenge and Eddie tells Rey that Dominic will come home with Eddie tonight, and at SummerSlam it will be forever. The social worker then tells both Eddie and Rey that because of the dangerous situation happening, Dominic has to go into foster care, thus increasing the emotional overtones of this story. Rey promises his son that Dominic will be coming home soon, and Eddie tells Dominic that after SummerSlam, Dominic will say goodbye to the Mysterios forever. The social worker leaves with Dominic, and on top of the ramp, Dominic waves to Angie and Rey as Eddie grins. On the last show before the epic ladder match for custody of Dominic, Eddie comes out to open the show in his cold, somber look, and Eddie cuts a promo in the shadow of a ladder. Eddie talks about the previous week and Rey's challenge at SummerSlam. The people chant Eddie sucks, and Eddie sells the ladder match for Dominic's custody. Eddie says that he will climb the ladder not because of revenge or because he wants to hurt Rey Mysterio. Eddie is going to climb the ladder for every father that loves his sons. And after that, Dominic will become the greatest Guerrero ever. And at SummerSlam, Eddie vows to make Dominic come home to Papi. 45 minutes later, Rey comes out to wrestle the fitness guru Simon Dean. Dean cuts a promo calling Rey pathetic, and Dean wants to give a discount on Simon's fitness products, while making fun of the family predicament that Rey Mysterio is in. Rey then takes the fight to Simon, defending his family's honor, and Rey beats Simon Dean in 2 minutes and 40 seconds with a 619, drop of the dime and pinfall for the win. Moments later, Eddie talks with Josh Matthews in a backstage segment, vowing to win the custody of Dominic at SummerSlam.
Dominic, he's coming home with his real father, and that's me.
Ahead of the SummerSlam match, Eddie would be in a backstage segment with his wife Vicky, and Vicky would try to reason with Eddie. Eddie would eventually become angry with his wife and Vicky would be sent away. And 25 minutes later, Eddie Guerrero would be the first to make his entrance. Out of the gorilla position, Eddie appears prepared for a fight as the evil gaze meets the audience. At ringside, young Dominic Mysterio is with the social worker. As Eddie enters the ring, Eddie says hi to Dominic. Rey Mysterio, determined to win against Eddie Guerrero, would make his entrance next, consoling his son before heading to the ring. Eddie would then play mind games with Rey, and Eddie would go to Dominic and play nice with the social worker by shaking Mrs. Crabtree's hand. Eddie and Rey stare at each other, carrying the emotional burden of this match. The bell rings, Punches in the corner, Rey goes face first on the corner turnbuckle and suplex on Rey Mysterio. Eddie Irish whips Rey reverses leapfrog on Eddie who falls outside. Rey chases Eddie and Rey pays straight into the steel steps. Eddie then takes Rey straight into the ladders on the entryway. Eddie now has the upper hand and Eddie drags the ladder to the ring. Eddie props up the ladder in the middle of the ring and here comes Rey Mysterio. Springboard dropkick on Eddie and Eddie falls down violently. Eddie now procures a second ladder and Eddie uses the ladder to hit Rey. Back in the ring, Eddie pounds Rey counters and Eddie gets sent to the outside. Both men fight for the second ladder and Rey, with a baseball slide on the ladder, takes out Eddie Guerrero. Eddie on the outside holding the ladder. Springboard senton with precision on Eddie. Eddie is down and Rey proceeds to climb the ladder towards the briefcase. Rey is too slow to get up the ladder and Eddie shows up and both men fight on top of the ladder, with Eddie taking the upper hand and reaching for the briefcase. Then Rey recovers with some punches to Eddie's stomach and Eddie drives Rey's head into the ladder. Eddie with a sunset flip on Rey and both men fall to the mat. Eddie then closes the ladder and uses it as a weapon on Rey. Rey holds on to the ladder, struggling to get up. Eddie with a dropkick takes Rey Mysterio. Eddie slams Rey on the ladder, Eddie sandwiches Rey between the two ladders, and Eddie sacrifices his back to hurt Rey Mysterio. Eddie then tries to bury Rey with the ladder, and Eddie proceeds to climb towards the briefcase. Rey then pushes his ladder onto Eddie's ladder, and Rey climbs and gets near to punch Eddie. Eddie attempts another sunset flip, and disaster strikes. Both men fall to their doom, managing to escape unscathed from the horrible tumble. Eddie would then set up a ladder on the corner, and as Rey's running towards Eddie, Eddie counters Rey's advance, and Eddie gives an inverted powerbomb on the corner ladder. And now Rey is down, suffering the effects of the corner ladder. Eddie starts to climb the ladder ever so slowly, and young Dominic Mysterio comes to the aid of his fallen father. And Dominic would attempt to shake the ladder, but the ladder fails to move. Eddie catches wind of Dominic's presence, and Eddie attempts to intimidate the young Dominic. Eddie goes full-blown heel on Dominic, and as Eddie coils his hand for a slap, Rey shows up to take the fight to Eddie Guerrero. Irish whip on Eddie into a back body drop, Rey sets up a ladder on the ropes, and after a brawl, Eddie goes face first into the ladder. Eddie is now draped in the ladder and the second rope for the 619. Eddie falls with the ladder on top, and Rey drops the dime on the ladder and Eddie. Rey props up the ladder and starts to climb and attempt to reach for the briefcase. Eddie gives chase, and now Eddie has Rey on his shoulders. Rey manages to counter with a sunset flip power bomb, and Rey takes out Eddie. Both men are down, and Rey channels his remaining strength to attempt to climb the ladder yet again. And as Rey has a grasp on the ladder, Eddie manages to kick the ladder out from under Rey Mysterio, who's left in a precarious situation dangling on top of the ring. Rey falls, Eddie powerbombs Rey Mysterio, Rey's down, and Eddie traps Mysterio again with the ladder as Eddie climbs the ladder towards the briefcase. As Eddie struggles to release the briefcase, Rey musters his strength and Rey manages to shake the ladder. The tables turn, and now Eddie is dangling on top of the ring. Rey manages to take out Eddie from the skies, and both men are broken down.
Shane, ladies and gentlemen. It was never about. Let's go! Mysterio's got a leg! Get Eddie! Frustrated.
Eddie does his signature offense, the Three Amigos, and for the third amigo, Eddie punishes Rey with a vicious suplex on the unforgiving ladder. Back in the ladder, Eddie is climbing towards the briefcase, and Eddie's wife Vicky shows up to try to put some reason into Eddie Guerrero's mind. Eddie shoos his wife away, and Vicky pushes the ladder, bringing justice to this match. Eddie falls down, and the appreciative Rey Mysterio climbs the ladder towards the custody of his son Dominic. Vicky holds her husband down as Rey manages to grab the briefcase and keep custody of his beloved son. A family reunited, and a happy ending to the story. After the match at SummerSlam, the WWE would button up the story with a cage match. 3 weeks later, in the middle of the SmackDown broadcast, Eddie would finally win over Rey Mysterio, and both wrestlers would then move on to other rivalries. Eddie would be feuding with Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship, and Rey would feud with JBL. Thank you for watching this trip down memory lane regarding the epic rivalry between Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. Leave your comments, suggestions, ideas or constructive criticism in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to press that like button and also subscribe for more future content just like this. Or better, this has been fun, thank you for watching.